Hello everybody, this is Robin Michael here for the Benedetti sessions and virtual sessions, and this Facebook live session is actually not quite live. I've pre-recorded it because of the slight issues we had last week with the streaming for some people where the screen was frozen, etc. So I hope this is loud and clear, and we're going to have some great fun together over the next 30 minutes or so. If there are questions, I won't be responding to them because, well, even if I'm watching it myself, which I won't be, but Laura can collate some questions together and I can write back if need be, if there are questions that I think haven't been answered or really burning issues. So we're looking again at the Thomas Tallis improvisation section. This is the creative hub, if you like, although it's everything we do is creative. There should never be any distinction between that, of course. And hopefully you've already watched the tutorial, week 2 tutorial, where I went into in-depth analysis of how to practice these 2 scales. There's also now a PDF about where these scales come from, these modes. So today we're going to leave all that theory to one side and we're just going to play. The other good thing is that hopefully now the backing track, which you can practice to for this middle section, is on the website with a sort of explanatory video. So before we actually get our instruments, and I do have my instrument here, which is down on the ground, I want you all to have your instruments. Before we actually play, we're going to do a few rhythm things. Now I know you've been doing rhythm games already in some of the classes with Elsa and Patrick, but there's a very specific issue, rhythmical sort of thing that we need to grasp and absolutely have inside us for this particular improvisation. And that, if I'm actually going to put the metronome on now. I apologise for the sound of this because it's electronic and it's horrible. When I was a young student at the Junior Conservatoire in Glasgow, it was called the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama in those days, I had a chamber music teacher called Sheila Desson, wonderful lady, who used to say, you shouldn't practice with a metronome, you should swallow a metronome. Now, I never actually tried doing this. I had sort of doubts about how the digestive system might cope with this. But what she was talking about was internalizing rhythm. And we're going to internalize this rhythm. If you've listened to if you remember what we've been talking about, this improvisation section is in 6/8. Now, with 6/8, there is always, and right throughout the whole history of Western music in compound time. In other words, in 3 or 6, 9, 12, there's always the possibility to put syncopations in simple time. Now, I'll show you what I mean by that. So this is our metronome. Oh, that's a horrible sound. I much prefer those old-fashioned ones, if anyone remembers those. This is a sort of real cling, cling. But anyway, we're going to have that in the background. Now, this is our, if we think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this is the tempo of the improvisation section itself. It's quaver equals 100. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's actually just think of it in 2 groups of 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So there's always the possibility, and this is the thing about how you're sort of set up physically as a musician, because as well as being set up physically with the instrument, you need to be set up physically, rhythmically, so that you always have the chance to, if you're in 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3. Now this is what we call 3 against 2 or 2 against 3. So I'll show you how to do it. Let's tap this rhythm with our left hand. Now, it probably looks like it's right the other way around. You can do it with whatever hand. I don't actually care, but this is my left hand, and I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And there's our 6/8. Very simple, broken into 2 groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, put that hand to one side. With this hand, but with still the 6/8 rhythm, we're going to do effectively two dotted quavers. We're going to do it. It actually sounds more complicated. I'm just going to do it, and you're going to copy. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And if you say along with me, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And if you hear the words of this piece of music are 1, 2, and 3. Now it's the and that's important. That's the syncopation, and I want you to put an accent on that. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3. 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 Easy, right? So we're going to put the two things together now, and this is where it becomes a sort of real independence exercise, because your two hands have to be independent of each other. So let's set up our 6/8 again with our left hand, or right hand if we're doing mirror or whatever, I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, oh, 1, 2, 3. Keep that going, and on the other hand, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And say it. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Have you got the hang of that? 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2. If that's easy, let's switch hands. So the left hand does what the right hand's doing, and the right hand does what the left hand's doing. 1, and go. 1, 2, and 3. 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 Easy, okay? Now, let's get our instruments. Now that you've got that. In fact, no, don't take your instruments up yet. We're going to do 4 against 3, because that's even more fun. Let's get our 3 going again. 3. Let's do our 2. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to divide that 2 into another 2. 1, 2, 3. And now switched hands. Okay? Now, that may seem complicated. I'm going to switch the metronome off because it's going to make me go crazy. That may seem complicated, but actually it just takes a little bit of time, and it's great fun to do. If you're, well, none of you are sitting in classrooms at school, not that you ever would bored, but just in case you were, and with those who are going back to school soon, if you've got a moment where you finished your work early and you don't know what to do, you just sit and work out how to do 3 against 2, 4 against 3, then go into slightly harder ones like 5 against 3, 7 against 3, and see how these relationships work. The important thing is that this pulse, and if you think about it as a cyclical, like a circle, 1, 2, 3, 1. So we always bounce off the bottom or the top, however you want to think about it. It's a great way to sort of to internalize this rhythm. Now, the bass line, if you remember, I'm going to switch the metronome back on. It was just nice to have a little break from it. I'm going to switch the metronome back on. I'm going to pitch it. Now, if any of you you might already have learnt the bass line, but I've certainly played it enough. So if you want to play along with me, do so right now. It goes 2, 3. It's a really nice tempo. Now, can you identify where the 3 against 2 bit is? You hear how I'm always with the metronome, apart from 1 bit, and it's obviously at the end of the phrase. This bit here, 2 and 3, is the and. If you remember when we were vocalizing 1, 2, and 3. So I want you to clap on the and with me. That one. Just that 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 2. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. One more time around that. I hope you're all tapping your feet. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3. Boom. Okay, we're going to put the metronome off. So you hear how practical and how that really sets up the whole groove. This 3 against 2 thing. Okay? So I'm going to pick up the bow now, and we're going to put the metronome back on, and we're going to do some call and response things. So first of all, let's just, what we mustn't ever do is lose the internalization of this groove. And what we've been doing with this down, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 3 against 2 is incredibly important. And actually, it's something for those of you who go on to study works of particularly Brahms. Brahms is a composer that does this in 6/8 all the time. For instance, the second cello sonata in the scherzo, it's littered with these sections where you're playing against the piano and vice versa. So it's a very, very important thing to be able to feel and to be able to realize. Now, we're going to do some call and response things. I'm not even going to go back over the scales of what we did. We know all of that now, and we're going to do all of this by ear right now. So I'm going to put the metronome back on. And what you hear, hopefully, and another thing that will internalize, because in this improvisation section, we have 2 bars of this groove over. So I'm going to play the bass line for you again, and play along with me if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is an E. So there's 2 bars of that, and then we change. And you can hear it goes down a tone. 1, 2, and 3, and then back up, and it just repeats around that. Now the video that's on the website is on a loop actually, so you can practice to your heart's content. It's about 3 or 4 minutes, and if you can't say what you need to say in 3 or 4 minutes, it's probably not worth saying at all. That's an old sort of bit of advice I was given a long time ago. So you've got that to practice with. That's if you can imagine that bass line in your head, I'm going to play something, and then you're going to play it back. We're going to start on E. That's the only thing I'm going to tell you. So find an E, maybe cellos, this, do it on the D string. Same for, you can do it actually if you're feeling particularly adventurous up there. Violinists, why don't you either play it on your open E string or an octave down, whatever you like. I don't care about the octave, because actually I can't hear you. So here we go. 1, 2, I'm going to play it, and then you're going to play it back. You'll see how this is going to work. It's very straightforward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4. And now you. Ba-dum, bum. 4, 5. Me. And 4, 5, 6. Ba-dum, bum. We're going to repeat that. 4, 5, 6. Ba-dum, bum. And me. And you. Ba-dum, bum. Here's a new one. 2, 3. Ba-dum, ba-dum. 4, 5, 6. 5, 6. Ba-dum, ba-dum. A new one. 4, 5, 6. Boom-doo-dee-da. Here's the and here what happens, we modulate, do-do-dee-da. We just go down a tone, but I might change. Let's do that one again, and you do-do-dee-da. But this time I'm gonna go up. Do-do-do-do. If you can't quite get the notes, just sing it. Doom-dee-dee-da. We're gonna go down. 2, 3, boom, beat, dee, da. 2, 3, boom, 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 boom. 2, 3, boom, da, da, da. That's a difficult one. 2, three. Boom, da, da, da. Let's do that one again, because that's almost all syncopated. And do da, da, da. Da, 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 doom, ba, ba, ba. Oh, there's a third note. Do, 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 da. And we're going to do that. 2, 3, boom, do that. And let's do that again. Fingering doesn't matter. Do that. Open strings are cool, but just try and get the rhythm. Do that. And here's another 3-note cell. Do that. Now I'm going to have a 4th note. 2, 3. Bum, 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 bum. 2, 3. Bum, 2, 3. Bum, do, do, da. Let's do that again. You can put a 3rd in if you like. Do, 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 but this is going to be different. 2, 3. Bum, 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 bum. 2, 3. 2, 3. Do, 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 dum, bum. 2, 3. Bum, 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 bum. Let's sing that again. Do, do, do. Sing or play. Do, 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 dum, bum. Now this is different. 2, 3. Do, 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 dum, bum. 2, 3. Bum, 2, 3. Bum, 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 bum. 2, 3. Bum, 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 bum. 2, 3. Bum, 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 bum. You hear how I'm really pushing against the tempo. 2, 3. 2, 3. Dee, 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 dee. New one. I can't sing very well, but it doesn't matter as long as you can hear. Again, that one again. You can hear you can use the vibrato. I like that one so much. We're going to do that again. And and again. Use a different. Now I'm going to start using different octaves around the instrument now. Nothing complicated, but you know, this is where you need to start experimenting, going outside the octave we've just been working with and just using a different register. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do da da. Really sort of low down in the voice. Do da do. And really try and copy the attack that I'm doing. Do da da bum. Actually, I sang that wrong. 2, 3. Do bum bum bum. Let's do that again. I was talking too much. 2, 3. Do bum bum bum. 2, 3. 2, 3. Do bum bum bum. Okay, everybody, fantastic stuff. You're probably now realizing what you're having to do with the bow is slightly different to the norm in terms of how you use articulation and how accents are sort of formulated. So I want to just do a little bit now about how we can work on that and how we can develop that in our playing in terms of technique and how we sort of realize this feel, this sort of jazz groove. You'll have noticed that when we were doing the call and response thing, often if I was playing something in a sort of quaver rhythm, the quavers weren't equal. In other words, if I played you equal quavers. They sound like this. In other words, the down bow and the up bow are absolutely the same, and the time values are the same as well. Now, of course, in jazz that's slightly different, because when we have quavers, even if they're written down like that, we phrase them in a triplet feel. So instead of we take a triplet rhythm, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. We miss out the second one, and we have 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Okay, and it sounds a bit like this. Now the thing is, that hopefully sounds like it has a swing. I could see that rhythm written down and play it very differently. I could interpret it like this. You hear how it's completely square and doesn't swing at all. So the important thing is that we actually learn the technique with the bow so that we can make it swing. Now obviously the version I did that did swing, the notes are longer. So we need to, this is actually quite a legato. The bow never leaves the string, but at the same time, because we've got one note that's longer than the other, we need to be very agile about how we change the point of contact and the bow's speed. Now, to practice this, I want you to just put your bow down for a minute, because if you're doing this and thinking in straight lines, of course, we always talk about bowing at a 90-degree angle and keeping a nice straight bow, which is very important. But if our arm is doing a straight line, we have no ability to be able to change the point of contact and the bow distribution. So I want you to just, with me, just do a few circles with the right hand, even if it looks as if it's the left hand. I mean, this is my right hand, it's the hand I hold my bow with. Let's just do some circles, because this is what we're going to be reproducing in a second. Okay, and now, da 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 da. If you can imagine your down bow and your up bow, da 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 da. Your up bow, you can see the circle is still there, but I'm flicking da 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 the wrist for the up bow, which is a quicker note value. Da 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 da. So pull, push, pull. Actually, why am I saying pull, push? I'm going to cut in there and just give you another little sort of nugget of something you might not know, which for me is very important. We talk about down and up bows, and it drives me to distraction, because certainly, particularly on the cello, we don't ever go down or up. It's a sort of violin thing. And even for the violinist, it doesn't actually really describe in an expressive way the art of bowing. And I actually like to think about it in terms, well, as how the French talk about bowing, which when they talk about down and up, they talk about tirer, and pousser, which is pulling and pushing. And actually it's much more, it makes much more sense in terms of the actual physical act as well, because when we do a down bow, what we know as a down bow, we are pulling the bow, if you like, against, with the natural resistance of the string. We're pulling on the down bow, and then we're pushing on the up bow, and that is the resistance that we create. Pulling, pushing. That to me is the sort of starting point of bowing. So I'm always thinking pull, push, pull, push, pull, push. That's why I said it there. So that's just a little side story for you. But let's just, now that we've got that going, let's pick up the bow again, and just on any note you like, I'm going to choose an E, and of course I can't hear you, so you can choose whatever note you like against that. But and we are starting in the tonality of E. So let's, if you like, use an E. And I want you to just see if you can really get that rhythm into the bow using our circular motion with the arm, and of course then with the wrist, and the fingers react to that in the bow as well. So up bow gets an accent. Now, often when we have a compound rhythm with a long down and a short up, we don't want an accent, particularly when we're playing music like Bach. But in this, to get the feel, we do want a sort of slide push. Now let's practice that. I'm sure that you're getting fluent at that now. Let's practice that over a scale. Let's take our scale. Let's take our E Aeolian scale. Do you remember? And don't all suddenly go, what's an Aeolian scale? It's just the notes of G major starting on E. We did a lot of work over the last week on this. So I'll play it first and then we can play it together. So we're going to do it like this. We're going to go up the scale. And then we'll come back down. Okay? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Keeping the rhythm. Always integral. Okay, let's try that now. Now D. So again, it's the same notes, but just starting on D this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, got that? Very good. Now, we're going to put that back into practice. Now, having just spent a bit of time with that inegal rhythm, if you like, that triplet rhythm, we're going to come back and do some more call and response now, but we're going to sort of develop the actual melodic language of what we're doing. So this is the final part of our session together. We've started off with our rhythmical warm-up, practicing 3 against 2. Then we did some call and response, actually just quite simple call and response between our 2 keys, our E minor and our D7. And then we went back to looking at a sort of technical issue with the bow and this sort of swing rhythm where we've got a doom ba 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 ba, a different bow division for the down and the up, or the pull and the push, if you remember, tir and push. And now we're going to try and put all of that back into to sort of play, if you like, back into the melting pot with our sequence. So I'm going to put the metronome back on again, and we're going to do the same call and response, but we're going to be working at a slightly more sophisticated level now. Now, hopefully you all had a look at the tutorial for this week, and in that I looked at how we can build up not only just by scales but also by arpeggios. So I was looking at how, yes, we've got our 2 scales, which the notes of our G major, but we're starting on E and then D. Yeah, there's 2 scales, and we can practice them as scales like that. In other words, where the notes are going up in steps. We can also practice them in arpeggios where they're going up in thirds. Like that. I'm going very fast because I'm conscious that we're running out of time. So we're building things in thirds. We can also build things in other intervals, and particularly in the music of where this comes from, if you like, sort of jazz music of the 50s and 60s. Musicians like McCoy Tyner were starting to think actually using things like fourths. So like that. Now, of course, it's not the first time. If you know Schoenberg's First Chamber Symphony, it's absolutely based. The first motif, bom 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 bom, is all in fourths. So I'm now we're going to do some call and response things again, and I'm going to mix all of these things up. Don't worry, it's not going to be complicated. And if you're finding you can't quite get to the notes in time, just sing it, because the point about this is not that you can copy the notes. I don't care about that. It's the feel, it's the groove, it's the rhythm. Okay, so the metronome, my horrible electronic metronome, is going back on. And let's all sing or play the bass line just a couple of times just to get ourselves back into that groove. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, and 3. You remember that bit? 3 against 2. Here we go. This is the first one. 2, 3. Boom, doo, doo, bum, bum. We did that one before, but I liked it so much. We're going to do it again. Do, 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 bum, bum. And in these, just listen out for where the accents are. We're going to do something using things in steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3. Ya ba 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 ba. 2, 3. 2, 3. Ya ba 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 ba. That's a bit complicated. Sorry for that. I apologise. Here's a simpler one. Do 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 bum bum. Do da do bum bum bum. Da do do bum. Dee da do dum bum bum. And do 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 ba. And hear the rhythm. Do 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 do. Let's do that again with our circles with the wrist. And do 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 ba. And again. And do 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 do. That's something with fourths. Do bum and bum bum ba da and bum bum da again bum 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 ba da and bum and bum bum da. And use effects like that. We can have lots of fun. Yeah. So what I want you to start doing, I'm going to put the metronome off, as I'm conscious we're running out of time. The thing is, what I want you to do now. Now we've been doing these sort of call and response things. You've got an idea of how to develop melodically our improvisation. So we've got things, we've got our scales, we've talked enough about that now, and you've got the sound in your head. What I want you to do now is to develop things rhythmically, and also using this fantastic instrument that you have, whatever instrument it is, and thinking of this instrument not just as our bow and our 4 strings, but as a sort of sound box. I've been lucky enough to work with a wonderful living composer, Helmut Lachermann, who thinks about an instrument as a sort of limitless set of possibilities, resonances everywhere around it. So while he will use many extended techniques, what I'm talking about is that we've got all the things like vibrato, pizzicato, collegno. You can just run riot with this. There are no parameters, there are no boundaries. There is no Brexit whatsoever with this at all. So just have fun. And just to recap, because hopefully you can play this video again, the 3 against 2 thing that we did at the start is incredibly important in this kind of music. And this triplet rhythm that we were working with the bow, those are the 2 things I want you to take away from today. Practice. As I say, leave some questions if there are any really pressing things. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.